Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Project to Payments Live podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about marketing in a recession, which seems to be a hot topic for a lot of contractors and small businesses right now. But before we dive in, I wanted to give a quick understanding of why we started this podcast. Ultimately, it's to provide valuable and timely content contractors and small business owners can use to succeed. It's no secret, home and field service owners are overworked and underserved. We created a field service management app called Project to Payment for that same reason. We wanted to give hardworking small businesses something tangible that they can use to help them save time and money, grow their business with faster bidding, invoicing, and payments using a tool that's built specifically for you. We're hoping the insights from this podcast is another way in which we can help give time and flexibility back to you. So without further delay, let me introduce our guest speaker today. CJ Kortes is the CEO and partner of the SEO Contractor, a digital marketing company that CJ founded with his brother John in 2011. CJ started out his career as a trade professional before building his own marketing company. The SEO Contractor was started during a recession with nothing more than $1,200 and a love for making websites. 12 years later, their company has a solid monthly book of business, zero debt, growing profit margins, and cash flow. Now CJ dedicates his time to help contractors see the same success in their own businesses. I'm excited to hear what CJ has to share with us today. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, CJ.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction there, and letting me be part of this this first podcast for Project to Payment. Yes. So question, are we in a recession? One of the things in the intro that you pointed out is that we did actually start our business in a recession with little money. And it proved that even if it is a recession, that doesn't mean that everyone loses, so to speak. So the question that everyone has right now is are we in a recession? But it doesn't necessarily matter if we are or not. It's all in how you approach it, in my opinion. So if we could... next slide there. Okay, so maybe not. Remember, only some people lose in a recession. Depression is when everyone's out of work. A recession is when your neighbor's out of work. So as of February 2023, according to a CNBC article, there was nearly half of small business owners, 47% say the economy is in a recession already. This was just this past month here. So to me, that means, okay, if about 50% of business owners say we're in a recession, then that also means that 50% don't think that we are. And I can only assume from that statistic that many businesses are actually doing well. And the question remains, is it the economy? Is it their business model? It could be all kinds of factors, whether, as to what it may be. Depending on locations, depending on the industries, depending on how that industry or that company is operating, what they're offering, the price, there's just so many factors. So good news, you may be recession proof. And by you, I am talking specifically to contractors, to home service, commercial service companies, and there's some reason why I believe that. So according to an article by Investopia that I was looking into a lot of different articles whenever putting this together, and Investopia in particular pointed out that the energy, healthcare, and consumer staples sectors are the most secure during a recession. Now, so although classified as industrial and commercial professional services, which is what a contractor home service would be classified as, I argue that your industry actually has emergency staples. So maybe not consumer staples, the same as like, toilet paper and toothpaste, stuff like that, water. But in fact, emergency services, and these would be like roof leaks, water damage, bursts of clogged pipes, no heating and AC. So during an emergency, people aren't going to let their roofs leak and their pipes burst and flood the house. And, during a recession, they're still going to take care of their emergency issues. So that's why I believe that, there's somewhat of recession proof to certain contractors. That doesn't mean that every contractor is making it, though. But, let's think also about vanity services, landscaping, building a deck, pool building, remodeling. These things might be holding back during recession, whenever the average person is kind of holding their wallet back and only pulling it out for damage and emergency. But that's not always the case, and for a lot of different reasons. Like, let's look at this last little quote here. Keep in mind, every situation and potential location could be different. So for instance, during COVID lockdowns in the southern United States, pool builders saw a giant boom in business. One of our pool builders had their best year in 2020. So during COVID lockdowns, obviously the economy wasn't doing wonderful. Businesses are being shut down, but our pool builder sold 100 pools that year, small little mom and pop pool builder. That was the best that they've done. And that continued on for 2021. And I think it started to slow down end of 2022. And now, because it's kind of evened out a little. But the point that I'm showing you is that it's all about the environment, where you're located, what's going on in your area, and what you're selling or choose to sell. Maybe while everyone's selling the emergency services, you choose to sell the remodeling to the higher end people who aren't being as affected by the recession. So just an idea. Okay, so I always believe that who is seen is remembered. If everyone's pulling back, then someone's still being noticed. So life doesn't stop in a recession, so you must make your presence known. You must make your presence remain. So just because it's a recession doesn't mean cars aren't driving. Doesn't mean you're not going out to your grocery store, to your gas stations, to your, local shopping, which means vehicle wraps are going to be working. They're going to be seen. People still are online searching. Websites are still getting views. People don't put their phone down during a recession. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. We're using our phone for everything all the time. And again, if you're outdoors, so then maybe you see some outdoor advertising. It doesn't matter how bad the economy is. We love our TV, we love our radio, we love our social media, all that stuff. So life doesn't stop in the recession. And one interesting thing is our customers who are at the top of Google during COVID, what we noticed is just because people maybe weren't pulling their wallets out as quickly and as often, that didn't stop their websites from being trafficked. I didn't see any traffic actually go down to our customers' websites. So people were still searching. They were still visiting websites. They were still playing on all these devices. They might not have been converting as often or as quickly or pulling their wallet out, but they didn't stop life. So make yourself visible. This is the time when the majority of small businesses stop their marketing altogether. This is the biggest problem for most small businesses that I've noticed. Working with our company, we've worked with large companies, majority small to medium-sized businesses. And there's this common denominator where the minute times are tough, then small businesses, they just pull that marketing all together. But there may be fewer customers out there searching for your service as a contractor, but we know there's still people searching. So yeah, there may be less of it, but there's also going to be less competition because we know that most people do pull their budget. So we don't need to pull our budget, let everyone else do that. And we're the ones who rise out and are seen and are visible. So according to an article by the U.S. Chamber, pay attention to your competitors. And if you notice that your competitors are cutting back on their marketing, this presents an opportunity for your business to get ahead. Because, whether in a recession or not, marketing your brand's all about the visibility and the consistency. So like I mentioned before, people are still living. They're still out there looking around, doing their thing, researching. Maybe they're not pulling the wallet out as much, but they're still pulling it out. So let everyone else drop out of the game. And then you get to rise ahead and be the one who's seen and noticed, because the one who's seen is the one who's remembered. That's how I feel. Cut costs, but don't slash. Now, this is what I mentioned just a second ago. The biggest thing I've noticed, before we had the SEO contractor, I worked for a marketing firm as well. And it was more of a magazine marketing, but same deal. Like, I've seen this my entire career in business and marketing. The minute times are tough, for some reason, the chopping block is the marketing department. So according to Harvard Business Review, companies that put customers' needs under the microscope, they take a scalpel rather than a cleaver to their marketing budget. So whereas the first thing most small businesses do is just chop that marketing budget right out of there, completely cleave that thing away, we want to look at it under a microscope. We want to look at it and handle it with precision, with a scalpel rather than a big chopping block. So we also want a consistency and diversification. So we recommend highly targeting your campaigns. So just because you are tightening your budget, maybe, so again, back with the whole cleaver and scalpel, maybe you tighten up a little bit of your marketing on this channel, shift things over a little. Maybe you look internally and say, I don't need to be running that extra vehicle or that extra gas or that, whatever it might be in your business that's outside of marketing. Maybe you don't need some of these extra things that you can cut back on. So we're taking scalpels to, every part of our business, not just the marketing. But when it does come to the marketing, I think this is a particular point. I think this is actually what we should be doing always, but under a recession, highly targeted campaigns. And we want these campaigns to include diversification, which I mean multiple channels of marketing. So different forms of marketing, not all the eggs in one basket. And we want consistency. So even if that means less than you were spending, don't be everywhere when you could win somewhere first. And Mark Cuban actually has a book called Winning at the Sport of Business. And Winning at the Sport of Business, he says, if you haven't, in his book, he mentioned specifically, if you haven't won in the US, because he's not a contractor, he's talking other forms of business. But if you haven't won in the US, why would you all of a sudden be expanding and trying to be like a worldwide company? Let's say like a Facebook or an Amazon, like win in your own backyard first, then grow outwards. So if you were spending, say, like $5K a month on your marketing, and now you chop that down, well, I guess I shouldn't use chop because we don't want to chop. Now you cut that down nice and finely to $2,500. The question then becomes, where do I put that $2,500? So I think it should be very targeted and most likely to your most local of service area. I think it should be focusing on your leading service, possibly. You want to, let me paint a story here. Let's say that you're a contractor. I'll just pick Texas because, that's where a lot of our contractors are. So I'll tell you a story about one of our customers in Rockwall, and they're an electrician, and they service Rockwall primarily. Now, just like all other service contractors, they can drive outside of Rockwall to the neighboring cities. But, we decided that we're going to take that budget and get the most out of Rockwall. You can always be getting more money and more jobs in Rockwall. And then once you've pretty much maxed your ability to get work there, we can, now target extra. Now, that doesn't mean you're still going to get jobs from neighboring cities, and you're going to accept those jobs, and you're going to be out on those calls. But your money for marketing is going to be highly targeted. So for them, what we've done is we've gotten them to the top of Google for sure. So anytime you type Rockwall and electrician, they are in the #1 spot. So that's great. They've done that. So then the question becomes, well, what do we do? What do we do next? Do we expand to the next city? And we were like, no, we need to get more out of Rockwall. So now what we're doing is we're running Facebook advertisements, and they have a radio jingle, we're running Spotify advertisements. I'd like to then, we're not doing it yet, but I'd like to then run Google local service ads as well. So they're not just at the top organically, but at top for Google. So the theory here is, okay, there's more work to be won in Rockwall, and they're in the top of Google, but they're not on the top for all the paid spots, just the organic. And when people in Rockwall are on their social media, they're not there. So the idea becomes, let's make our radio Spotify ad only target Rockwall, women of us. We can do women and men, but in their case, we're doing women ages 34 to like 60, I believe, something like that. And then we're targeting Rockwall only for Facebook. And again, we're targeting the same parameters. They're at the top for Google. So now picture this. A woman in the right age range who lives in Rockwall is driving around in her car with her kids. She's got a podcast on in the background on Spotify. She's hearing the radio jingle. She then goes and gets on her Facebook feed. She's seeing the same company that she heard the jingle for. She's then going and driving around doing local groceries. She's seeing the vans because obviously that company is doing work in that city. That's where all the advertising and stuff is going. And then now when she's ready, who does she think of? She thinks of them, goes to Google, does a search. Maybe somewhere in that order, she did a search first and she found them, but she didn't choose them yet, but she landed on their website. Well, now that she landed on their website, a cookie happens, or a pixel is what they call it. And now she's getting the Facebook ads because she landed on the site. So my whole point here is target an area, take your limited budget and do multiple channels to be seen everywhere. So now to these people in Rockwall, it's like, wow, you're everywhere. And they think you're spending all this money, but you're not. You're just targeted. So that kind of leads me into some of what I was just saying already, but focus like a surgeon. So we're talking about a recession here and the idea that maybe we're in one. Well, the hardest thing in business is to get your first customer. The second hardest thing is to get your second customer, and so on. So when you are in tough times or the economy's in a tough time, loyal customers is going to be the biggest value of your business. So anyone who's hurting and times are rough, look at your existing customers more than ever. I mean, they may be what gets you through this time period. So, having their emails, having their contacts, it's always easier to go to a happy customer and get them to do a little bit more with you than it is to find a whole new one from scratch. So take advantage of these loyal customers. Reach out to your existing customers. Stay close with them, extra close now than ever. Examine the current customer's journey and their fulfillment. Is there somewhere in this journey where you can add some value and do something else? Is there somewhere like, maybe this, like say project to payment, for instance, in their invoicing software, is that something where now your customer, it's easier for them? They don't have all these paper copies. They don't have to, it's an easier system, and it's for them to keep track of and to use. So are there things in your current customer's journey and fulfillment that actually makes their life easier, makes them happier, makes them feel more secure? Are there things that you can do better for them? So your customers, they always have options. They might be loyal customers, but they still have other options. So now's an excellent time to ask yourself, is my company relevant to them more than ever before? They might have been a loyal customer when times are good, but now times are rough for them. Are they going to jump ship and lose that loyalty because maybe I backed off and started trying to get all these new customers because I was scared? Now's the time to be closer than ever, be more relevant than ever, do better for them than ever, give them something more. It's real easy to think about, I would need to make money and I need to get revenue. But the better you treat your customers and the more value you bring them, the more revenue and value you will get in turn. That's how I feel. So we always need and want new customers too. We want to turn new customers into loyal customers and then push that, just like described a second ago. But, we still need new customers. So in this time of need, is there a market segment or a service that, may be more relevant now than your business should focus on? Like a residential versus a commercial service, or an emergency maintenance versus a vanity service or a remodel, an emerging trend versus something tried and true. So now's the time to really look at your business and say, okay, do I start focusing on one product that might be a better sell in this time and cut out the stuff that's not working? If everyone's doing emergency service right now, am I going to be the one guy who goes against the grain and does the vanity service in the recession because now I've targeted the, class of people who aren't affected? That's everyone's scared to do that, but you found the right segment of people who will pay. So that's going to be your niche. So, there's so many routes to go. There's no perfect formula. You have to look at your area. You have to look at your offerings, and you have to look at what people are willing to pull their wallet out for. So in a New York Times article, Brunson Van Wyck, he's a Manhattan-based event planner. He kept his business afloat during the last recession by shifting away from private parties to corporate events, working with people like Target, Amazon, Samsung. So for him, a business owner who's running private parties nonstop, and times got tough for him, made a lateral shift over to corporate. I'm not sure if he ever did corporate before, if this was a completely new concept, but the point is he didn't beat a dead horse when his private parties weren't working out. Instead, he made a shift. That's one way to do it. So look at yourself and see what your way is. I would say prepare to rebound, because just because you're down, you're not out, and there's always a rebound after a recession. I think this is probably going to be one of the most important slides because it's based on a really heavy study. So in prepare to rebound, I would say that a rebound is going to follow every recession, but not every every business bounces back. And the chances of bouncing back are actually pretty slim, but they're slim for two specific types of categories: the people who slash their budgets completely, and the people who go extra heavy and all in. It's like it's taking the extremes, so the company who just cuts it all and doesn't do any marketing, and then the company who says, what, this is a tough time, I'm going to put all my money into marketing and take a big gamble. Now, again, there's no perfect formula. There's people who have taken big gambles and had big rewards. There's people who've taken probably way more that have taken big gambles and have not had the rewards. But this isn't just a made up, okay, those who slash their budgets and those who go extra, have slim chances. I didn't just make that up out of nowhere. According to a Harvard Business Review, there was a year-long study, and the year-long study on our website is this, on the SEOcontractor.com is this article as well about marketing and recession. And it has the people who did the study and all the links there. But this year-long study was done by these three gentlemen, and what they did was they actually studied a multitude of companies over 3 different recessions, and again took an entire year to get all this data compiled. And in the end, what they found were that companies that were able to master that balance between cost cutting and putting money into marketing to survive, which is basically investing and growing tomorrow after the recession. So those who balance cost cutting and future growth, they had, if I'm not mistaken, a 37% chance, the highest statistic of actually making it through, whereas all the people who put the slash on their budget or put extra heavy, their statistics, I don't remember the numbers, but were way less of them surviving. And many of them, I do remember from the article that it took even some of these companies that maybe they slashed or they went extra and they did survive, but it took them 3 years to survive. So to get back to where they were, it took 3 years after the recession to even get back. So either they were down and out or recovered 3 years later. But the people who did the best, their solution, it's pretty clear. Balance your offense and your defensive strategy. Cut the cost, tighten up, focus, keep some marketing money for the future, and put your money into marketing for future growth. Future growth, scalpel cost cutting and not slashing, offensive defense strategy in balance. So my final thought here is, to me, it makes the most sense. Whether you're in a recession or not right now, don't harp on that fact. The more that we harp on this idea that we're in a recession, the more we're just going to let the recession tear us apart and weigh us down, even if we are in one. The point to me is whether we're in one or we're not in one, it always makes the most sense to run your business with these methods in mind. These methods of, staying lean, but still marketing and for the future growth, and really understanding the customer and the value and what's working here and what's working there. I can tell you that, I might not, our company might not be, on the Fortune 500 list, but at the same time, we have made it through recessions with steady growth, with no debt, with, customers who are constantly upselling their and adding more to their services, and in good cash flow. This is how we even made it through our COVID experiences. We had all this in place. So we prefer what we call a think big and act small method. There's a book called Think Big and Act Small. Really great book. Look that up and read it. It shows you how it follows 10 huge companies, like really big corporate companies who've had 10% growth consistently for 10 years. And the whole consistency of these companies were that they had the think big mentality, but they acted small. You never want to think big and act big. Those guys, they often put themselves out of business by being too aggressive, even if it does great at first. Thinking small and acting small never will get you anywhere. So you want to think big, act small. So keep your passion strong, keep your focus tight, your budget lean, your marketing consistent. And I think it always works with passion. So keep your dream alive, stay passionate, and that's it.
Well, gosh, thanks for sharing and joining the podcast, CJ. One thing I've known when you speak about passion there at the end is getting to know you the last few days even better. You are passionate about your work. You're passionate about helping businesses. So I love that. And this is certainly great information and gives business owners something to think about when it comes to marketing. I mean, it definitely resonates when you think about keeping your brand up, staying relevant during tough economic times. And not only does that help you when your competitors are maybe quieter and not doing that, but it also can really be a catalyst for when when the economy rebounds, and it always does. So it just puts you in a much better situation then. So one thing I forgot to mention early on, and we do have some questions, is in the chat, feel free to throw in some questions if you do have some. We'll get to those here in just a moment. But before we do, I just wanted to walk through a few of the resources that we have on the screen so it can help you get started with, on marketing your business and kind of that business development journey. The first Project to Payments is offering a free guide on how you can generate more field service leads online. The guide includes a bunch of practical tips and linked resources for those that are just looking to get started or maybe slowly up their online game. The second would be optimizing your website. So as you optimize your website, and CJ is great about getting your online presence and websites generated, but payment pages have become a big piece, and it's a great way to start accepting payment online for completed work right through your website. Nice thing with that too is you're driving current customers to your website to make a payment. That way you can share information or anything that you want to add to your website. They're going to be seeing just natively by making a payment to you. So if you have any questions on that, I can certainly help you out. Just reach out to me or anyone on the project payment business development team. And then the last would be if you're looking for assistance, obviously putting together a marketing plan that works for your business. I mentioned earlier, and obviously you can tell by his passion and knowledge that CJ and his team have been helping contractors like yours get found on Google and creating those websites and generating new business regardless of how the economy is doing. So reach out to CJ and his team at the SEO Contractor and schedule time to check. So I think you'll find it very valuable. All right, so now we'll open up the floor to questions. We'll see if a few more trickle in here. So if you haven't done so, again, put them in the chat and we'll review them and get them over to us. And let's look through there. So most of these are going to be for you, CJ, it looks like. So we'll go with the first one. Well, what is SEO for contractors and how do you decide if it's worth the investment? Ooh, we're going to get a lot of ROI ones, I think, when it comes to marketing.
So SEO for contractors is, if you really think about a contractor, a home service, a commercial service company, individual contractor, they don't have, or you don't have typically an office on Main Street, like a restaurant does where people drive by and see your business. So, the most important thing for contractors is how they're found, because they come to you, they come to your house and perform their work there. So the first things that come to mind is always, okay, well, I'm going to ask a friend, referral, ask a friend or neighbor. I'm going to go with the person that I've seen driving around my neighborhood and around town, seen their service vehicles. And then I'm going to go online and I'm typically going to search like a plumber near me, electrician near me, HVAC, roofer near me. So whenever, we say SEO for contractors, we even named our company the SEO Contractor specifically because that's our niche is SEO for contractors. What we're saying there is that your company needs to be found and noticed in a local area. And that's what SEO is. SEO, search engine optimization, is the definition of SEO. And I want you to think about it in a very specific way. If you're on Facebook, for instance, social media, you're not typically looking for like a contractor. You're on your feed just enjoying social media. Sometimes you might ask a friend, hey, do you recommend someone? But you're on your feed. So whenever you see an ad, that's being put in front of you. But for search engines, the person goes to the search engine and looks for you. So SEO for contractors means that when someone goes to Google and specifically has the intent to search and find a local contractor, that you have optimized your website in a way where Google places it at the top. A website is like a person who goes to the gym, and the one who's the most optimized, that goes the most often, who's strong, has strength, Google says, wow, this website's stronger than the other website, is going to place it at the top because it's stronger, because it's optimized for the person who is searching with the intent to find. So that's what SEO for contractors is. And the last part of that question, I'll be quick, as regards to ROI. If you're a brand new business, I wouldn't suggest coming out as a brand new business and only putting your money into SEO, because you want to diversify, because SEO is going to take some time. Because like going to the gym, you're not just going to get buff in one day. You're going to have to earn that listing. So it's great for people who are doing multiple forms of marketing, have a good business presence, and they're ready to get more online. But to ultimately answer the ROI question, we track ROI for all of our sales channels, and organic SEO has a about a 45% conversion rate compared to pay-per-click, which can be 4 to 6. I know email marketing is, always, or print marketing was always historically 2%. So if you can earn that spot and take the time to invest and get there, you will have a higher conversion of those who search for your ROI.
Yeah, it's that Google listings is super important. I mean, even when you get a referral, sometimes if it's from next door, your neighbor, and you do a quick search and you maybe didn't type it in right, when you can't find that website, even when you're almost specifically looking for it, I don't want to say raise a red flag with me, but there's just something about not being able to find some information on them. So even in those instances, I think it kind of hits home with a lot of people because they want that information right now and they don't want to spend a lot of time hunting for it.
100%. It does raise red flags, and the people move quick, so they'll move very quickly to the next one on the list.
Exactly. So another question you have is mention cutting costs but not slashing costs. This person's saying, do you have any examples of what you mean by that? And are there any free or affordable resources that I can use to help grow my business?
Yeah, so free and affordable. It's like I mentioned before, loyal customers are already exist. So if you have their email lists and you have an email list of subscribers that you've built over the life of your business, the email list is probably one of the cheapest ways of marketing. And it's really easy to think like it's not important, maybe, oh, that's only for big brands like who are selling products and, fashion and stuff like that. But, ever since we started implementing, because we didn't even do this at first, that's how bad we were with our email list. We had one, but we didn't hit it up frequently. So we've been doing emails bi-weekly. And I can say that almost every one of our emails has, even if it goes out to a few hundred people, has at least gotten 1 or 2 people to get back in touch with us and express a need for a potential upsell. So one email going out that gets an upsell, I'm happy with that, even if it's one upsell from one email. So to me, building an email list of subscribers and current customers is the easiest, freest way of staying in contact and pushing your stuff. Also, that Google Map listing, your Google My Business, Google Map listing is free to set up. Those really work based off location and reviews. So there's no fancy method of SEO to really make the map like show in an area, but setting it up properly, posting onto it, similar to social media, you can make some posts here and there, articles and stuff, posting specials, getting reviews and sending your map link to customers to get reviews. These are all free ways, some free and affordable deals for sure. And I forgot the first part of that question.
Yeah, it was let me reread it. Examples about slashing or cutting costs. If you had any of those?
Yeah, I think the example, for instance, we've got some customers who do Google Local Service, Facebook, pay-per-click, and organic SEO. Well, when we look at the conversions, they're getting a lot of calls and leads from all of them and conversions from all of them. But we've noticed that the pay-per-click, for instance, has the smallest conversion rate. So right away, we could say, okay, let's not cut the cost of what's converting sales the most. Let's cut the cost of what's converting sales the least. So that might be a good example to take. Maybe you got 3,000 going to pay-per-click, and you want to save an extra 2, cut that down to 1. And know that you're not messing up the other things that you have. And that leads me to a one thing that I don't really remember mentioning in the podcast. I think the most important thing is to understand where every lead comes from. We've implemented some new software on our customer site where we can tell you where every lead, record every call, and we listen to every call and find if, sometimes the customer, unfortunately, the receptionist or something on their end might lose a sale just because they weren't as knowledgeable as the owner, so we'll call an owner and be like, hey, your receptionist said you don't service this area. And he's like, well, we do service that area. So then now he's getting with the receptionist, he's helping train her better. So my point is that before you go in and start slashing stuff and cutting stuff, make sure you understand where all your stuff's really coming from. I've got so many customers who at first were like, well, I'm not really getting anything from organic. Well, then we throw this call tracking on there. And if it turns out they're getting quite a bit that we can prove, we can be like, hey, this person at this date called you by doing this Google search and making it on this page. And they're like, oh, that's actually turned out to be a good sale. So I think cutting has a lot to do with understanding what is and isn't working. That way you don't cut something that is working and you can kind of push and pull with what is and isn't working.
That's interesting on the calling piece. If you think about how many times, not saying I have a ton of service calls, but I've had my fair share in the recent years, and how many never pick up the phone. And again, the voicemail process is a little bit, because again, like you said, you're going on to the next one, you're going to call 4 of them. The one that picks up might be the one that ultimately gets the job. So that's interesting that you track all of those. So I like that. I wasn't aware that was something that companies were doing. So one thing I wanted to mention on the free piece, and this isn't necessarily marketing related, but it is a free or low cost improvement that businesses can make, and it's really ensuring the process of getting estimates, invoices, and payment collection is that process for your business is frictionless. I can't speak to how many times, and it's funny because at our company too, we have a younger group of employees, and it's amazing that if you required one of them to send a check, and they're all new homeowners too, to send a check or print a PDF and sign it and send it back in the mail, they're not going to work with you. And so making sure that piece is frictionless, and it might work for for a certain subset of your clients, but making sure that you have a process in place to electronically take care of that, so you're not pigeonholing yourself when you start to work with a segment of the population that isn't accustomed to doing things very manual. So, and that's really why we created Project to Payment, just to be that kind of free a tool, I guess, for businesses to use to kind of remove that friction from the process. It's something that you can work into your process, and some of our customers use it on all of their transactions. Some of them use it for, just those segments of where they need to really turn up the electronic piece and put that I would say the frictionless experience in front of their customers. So that's something, again, not marketing related, but something free that you can do to make sure that you're not losing any business and making that customer journey that much more acceptable or enjoyable.
But if you don't mind me just speaking on that real fast, because I think it plays right into this entire podcast of, marketing is in a recession wasn't just about cutting the marketing. It was about looking at your business in a lot of different angles. And, if you have a tool like Project to Payment, which is free right now, but let's say if it wasn't, like, just hypothetically, say it wasn't free right now and it still was a small fee. Well, I've printed plenty of estimates and invoices for our customers. You might be like $500, $600 for a stack of 500 estimates. So it's not like printing's free. And now your brand to a customer, it's also about the mental perception, and ease. So your customer sees you running a very old school system. You've showed up with a white van that's not wrapped. You're not dressed, very well with any logos or anything. You've got all this paper and stuff. And, so your perception to them is something. And then also your ease for them. Now they've got, got these receipts that they have to file somewhere. And if like my wife doesn't keep any of that stuff, she likes everything electronically, digital on her folder, receipts and stuff. So it saves you time and money and headache on your end as well. I think it all plays into the same part of looking at your business as a whole in a recession.
For sure. Yeah. It's the old, when you hear, I can't get out of my truck, they spend my weekends updating books and sending out invoices, and then you find out what the process is. And you're like, well, there's certainly, I don't want to say it's on you, but there's certainly better ways to be doing that. And then surprisingly enough, and this happened during COVID too, for a lot that needed to go electronic, but it's always the sentiment, I wish I would have done this sooner. And it's just taking that step and doing it. And it obviously plays into the marketing side as well as it's scary, it's a cost, but at once you take that step forward, you're gonna, ultimately be able to reap the benefits. So
well, and you got your customer, now you've got your customer on your email list without having to take their email from a written form and plug it in. So now you've built an email and electronic relationship with your customer that then plays right into the free form of marketing to them. Get them on a yearly maintenance plan, get them on some kind of upsell 3-6 months from now when you reach out to make sure that the job you installed is still doing good. And they're like, oh, wow, these guys didn't just install some new pipes and left, they checked back with me, so.
Yeah, for sure. I think we'll go with one more. Some of these are, I know you've touched on some of those lots, so I want to make sure we're using the time appropriately. But I like this one because it's I don't want to say it's a jab, but it's more on that ROI as well. I've worked with marketing companies in the past, and all I get is fancy reports, but no sales. How do I prove ROI? Yeah.
So,
and maybe you touched on this as well with the calling, but I think it's funny just because we've been in that boat too, where we've gotten the reports. So yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm not, blind to the nature of my business as an SEO professional. I know the perception of our industry out there, and that's why most people that come to me, I'm not the first one they've been to. I'd like to say that I'm the last one for most of them, because most people, when they come to me, they're already so exhausted and frustrated. They've gone through multiple people, multiple years. And, the big part of the business is reporting, so we do have to give out fancy reports because we want people to see what's working, but the reports don't mean much to contractors. The contractor wants the phone to ring. They want the lead to turn into a sale. They want to look at the books and say, I spent this and I made this. That's ultimately what the contractor wants. And there's so many things about our industry that I would say there's segments of people who offer what we offer. And a lot of them, if they're ever just say, hey, a few $100, there's ones that go out there and say, we'll do SEO for a few $100. And that's their whole game. Their whole game is low cost because they know they're going to scoop up thousands of people who are willing to spend $300, $400, because that's easy. And but they know they're also really not doing, there's nothing you can really do except for a very small amount. So they ride their business on the fact that they're taking a little sum of money. And since they're taking so little, they don't have to prove as much return, and they can just make their whole business model after doing very little and getting away with it. I'd say that when you go with a company, I would look at a few things. I would look at one, how many other people in their industry have they worked with? Are they a new person who just has 1 or 2 clients? Are they just getting into this? Are they someone who does something else? Like maybe they do, social media only, but they're like, yeah, but I can do that. I can do SEO. Because I found that most people who think they can do SEO, but it's so difficult that you really need someone who's a specialist and been doing it a lot. But I think ultimately what we've learned over the years is that even when we show fancy reports and we're like, hey, you made it from the bottom of Google to the top, and that's what the report shows. And your website traffic went from this amount of people to this amount, and that's what the report shows. Even though that's a good thing, you went to the top, you increased traffic. That's great. The reason why we've really implemented our call tracking is because just because you get traffic to your website doesn't mean people are calling, doesn't mean these are the right people, doesn't mean that they're turning into sales. So I would say the best thing when it comes to working with an SEO company or a marketing company in general is to really work with them on a solid action plan that involves a very tight target and the understanding of what it's going to take to hit that target, and then a knowledge of where your leads are coming from. A lot of customers don't even ask when they answer the phone. They never ask, how'd you hear about us? And which that's first off, you got to at least ask how you heard about us. And then are you tracking that somewhere? Are you, I think you want a company with a track record, a company who's worked with your industry and dealt with multiple people, a company that is hands-on. And, I'm not going to lie, it's not perfect all the time. Sometimes we've had to do what I call fail gracefully, but, sometimes you do everything absolutely that you can, and you're there connected with a customer, even if it's not working like it planned. And I think that's what's most important, is working with a company who's doing their best to understand your business. They're very tight with your business and communicate, and they do everything they can to really try to prove that lead and figure out where that lead. We all want to figure out where that lead's coming from. So if you're not tracking your leads, even if you're not working with a company, start looking and figuring out how to track your leads better. It might be interesting where they start coming from. I know it's easy to think they all come from referrals, and most of the time they do. But is there one or two people even referring more than others? Is there a way to get some other people referring? Is there a way to make the people who are referring the most refer more? It's the understanding that helps the ROI.
For sure. And working with a company, again, we've worked with tons of marketing companies in the past, and it seems like that when you know the business and you work with contractors, the lingo, kind of what that messaging needs to be, so much easier on the business owner. We've spent so much time in the past just bringing marketing companies up to speed on what our message is, who our target audience is, and these owners a lot of times just don't have time or the patience or anything to do that. So working with someone that knows the industry and has kind of that leg up on the rest of the competition is huge. It's especially from my experience, again, because it's a lot of time kind of back and forth getting up to speed on the business model and kind of what you're trying to achieve. So that's great.
Last thing I'd say on that is the reason why a contractor would choose a project to payment or choose the SEO contractor is that if project to payment has, however many tons of contractors that are all running their invoices, well, now you get project to payment gets to learn from all of these contractors what works and what doesn't work. And they get to use that information to tighten up their software, your software, to work best for that industry. Same with us. I literally have a whole software full of multitude of contractors in different areas, and I can see which ones are performing better than others, which allows me to use what I learned from the better performers and try to apply it to the ones that aren't performing as well. So with project to payment, your software being focused on contractors is only going to get better as you continue to learn from every contractor. So that's why a contractor, I think, should choose a niche like that.
Wow, that's a great spot for us. I think that's a good note for us to kind of wrap up on. So well said, CJ. So I'll thank everyone again who was able to join us today. And obviously, thank you, CJ. Ton of great content. Thanks for being here. We will send out a link of this podcast shortly following our conclusion today. So look for that and feel free to share it. And if you have any questions, reach out to Project to Payment or the SEO Contractor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. The last thing I just want to say is that I think contractors are the lifeblood of our economy, and the better you do, the better our economy does. So We just really value what you do.
Well said. Well said. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, CJ, again.
Thank you.